Have you ever noticed this? Talk to someone born in the 1970s for just 5 minutes, and you'll feel it. They think differently, they react differently, they handle life differently. And no, it's not because they're stubborn, old-fashioned, or out of touch. There's a real reason behind it. Today, let's talk about why the 1970s generation thinks the way they do, and why, honestly, their mindset is kind of rare now. First, imagine growing up without the internet. No Google, no YouTube tutorials, no how to fix life in 5 steps videos. If something broke at home, you didn't search for a solution, you figured it out. If your cycle punctured, you didn't post a story. You walked it to the repair shop, waited, talked to strangers, and learned patience the hard way. That generation learned problem solving offline. So today, when something goes wrong, they don't panic immediately. They think, okay, let's handle this. While the rest of us think, where's my phone? Second, failure didn't get applause in the 70s. Today you fail and people say, it's okay, at least you tried. Back then, you failed and someone said, try again, better this time. Harsh? Maybe. But it built mental toughness. That's why people from the 70s don't get emotionally shaken by small setbacks. They've already faced rejection without motivational quotes to comfort them. They learned to stand up quietly without announcing it online. Third, our relationships were slower and deeper. No instant replies, no scene at 2:14 p.m., no anxiety checking if someone liked your photo. If you liked someone, you waited, sometimes days, sometimes weeks. Love letters took time, friendships took effort, trust took years. That's why the 1970s generation values loyalty over excitement. They don't get impressed easily, they get attached carefully. And yes, they find modern dating confusing. You met yesterday and already calling it complicated. For them, that's just Tuesday. Fourth, boredom existed, and it was a good thing. There was no endless scrolling, no autoplay, no algorithm deciding what you feel next. So they learned to sit with their thoughts. They talked, they imagined, they created fun from nothing. That's why many people from that generation are surprisingly calm alone. Silence doesn't scare them. Empty time doesn't make them restless. They don't need constant stimulation to feel alive. Fifth, respect wasn't optional. You didn't interrupt elders. You didn't argue just to win. Not because they were always right, but because listening was a habit. That shaped how they communicate today. They may disagree with you, but they won't shout about it. They think before speaking, and once they speak, they mean it. Now here's the interesting part. The 1970s generation grew up between two worlds. Old enough to remember life without technology, young enough to adapt to the new one. They didn't grow dependent on tech. They learned to use it. That's why their thinking feels balanced, not too emotional, not too mechanical, just grounded. Let's add a little humor here. Give a 1970s person a smartphone. They'll say, nice phone. Give a Gen Z a smartphone. They'll say battery health, camera quality, refresh rate. Different priorities, but here's the truth. The 1970s generation doesn't think they're superior, they're just experienced. They've seen slow success, they've survived without shortcuts. They've learned that life doesn't always give instant results, so when you see them calm in chaos, patient in pressure, quietly confident. Now you know why. They weren't raised by algorithms, they were raised by life itself. And maybe, just maybe, there's something we can learn from that. Because sometimes thinking differently isn't about being smarter, it's about being stronger where it actually matters. If you found this interesting, you already know what to do, and if someone in your life was born in the 1970s, watch how they handle problems tomorrow. You might see them with new respect.